The United Nations has said that India, and especially India's economy, happens to be a bright spot in the world at this moment. The global organization has predicted the Asian giant to grow by about 6.7% in this fiscal year. And if that turns out to be true, then India will maintain its status as the fastest growing major economy in the world. Now, to put that into context, India at this moment is a $3.4 trillion economy. So 6.7% of growth suggests over $200 billion worth of economic activity. And this, of course, is pretty good considering the global economic backdrop in the context. The United Nations has further said that India's growth will be backed by strong domestic demand and easing of inflation. The United Nations, in its report titled World Economic Situation and Prospects for the year 2023, has said, and I quote, "India remains a bright spot. Our projection for India hasn't changed since January, and we see many positives, including that the inflation will come down significantly." Now, the global economy is likely to grow by about 2.5% next year. Elevated inflation, high interest rates and heightened uncertainties are expected to weigh in on the global growth. The comparative narrative is what makes India's story to be an exception. But India, of course, needs to guard itself. There are some clear red flags. The gloomy global economy may impact foreign investments that come into India. Exports, of course, could take a bit of a beating as global demand is slowing down at this moment. For now, though, India is said to be the world's growth engine, and this is, of course, good news for all those who are banking on India's growth. All right, now to give us more perspective in terms of how all of this is likely to play out and what this means for the Indian economy and indeed for the global economy, we're being joined in by Ambrish Baliga, who's a market analyst who's joining us live from Mumbai. So thank you very much indeed for joining us here in WION. Now, it's very interesting that the United Nations has pegged India's growth at about 6.7% for this coming fiscal year. Now, given the global slowdown currently that is underway, what do you make of this figure?
I think it's a good growth figure for us, especially when we are fearing recession in leading economies like US and Europe. China recovery again is in doubt. So in the investing world, everything is relative. So if we are performing better than the rest of our peers, end of the day, funds are there to be invested, and these funds find their way into those economies which perform better than the rest. And more importantly for us, is that we have a very large young population, and a large chunk of that is actually getting into earning and spending stage. And I think this will continue to increase in the foreseeable future. So India will continue to be an internal consumption-driven economy. Right. And what the government is expecting is that by 2026, I think we should be a $5 trillion economy.
Very interesting. Now, what do you think is setting India apart at a time when the other economies, especially as you mentioned, the United States and Europe, struggling? Why is it that India is still able to grow at a pretty robust rate?
See, what the government has done in the last few years is they've ensured that there are large infra projects being rolled out across the country, which always has a trickle-down effect on the rest of the economy, which again means that the private capex spend will also increase going ahead, which will lead to better employment, which again leads to spending and consumption. So we are actually in a sweet spot looking at this Make in India, Atmanirbhar Bharat. When the global economy is actually slowing down, but we cannot really be isolated completely. But the effect, in fact, will be minimal. And that is what will, in fact, give us that edge. And additionally, we have these PLI schemes being rolled out for the industry. The environment is good for the industry and the service sector. So I think this momentum should continue.
Indeed, Mr. Baliga, for joining us and getting us all those insights there.
Thank you.